This is crazy. Oh my goodness. The WNBA, the Indiana Fever organization, it's a complete circus and a clown show. Now look, I don't know. We got to go through what Briana Turner is alleging versus the Indiana Fever organization. In response,
the Indiana Fever have not played a single game of the upcoming season, yet they are already sitting in the middle of one of the WNBA's most heated discussions. The latest wave of attention has nothing to do with a final score, a trade, or a surprise roster decision. It began with statements from veteran forward Briana Turner, whose interview quickly traveled across social media and triggered sharply divided reactions from basketball fans. Almost immediately, people began tying her words to Clark and off-season acquisition Sophie Cunningham, even though listeners did not agree on what Turner was actually trying to communicate. Some viewed her remarks as straightforward commentary about serious organizational concerns. Others interpreted them as a sign of possible tension developing beneath the surface in Indiana. Regardless of the original intention, the story has expanded far beyond the interview itself, creating questions about a Fever roster that has barely had time to practice together, much less establish its identity on the floor. So what did Turner really say that produced such an intense response? Was she criticizing Clark? Or did online clips and provocative headlines strip away the context surrounding her message? Why has Cunningham's name been pulled into the controversy, and is there any genuine connection between her and Turner's statements? Could the discussion reveal an actual divide inside the organization, or is this another example of social media turning uncertainty into a full-scale locker room narrative? As commentary continues to multiply, confirmed details are becoming mixed with theories, assumptions, and personal interpretations. That is why the entire situation needs to be examined carefully rather than reduced to a few viral quotes. We are going to revisit Turner's remarks, explain the circumstances surrounding them, and identify why they attracted so much attention. We will also explore how Clark and Cunningham became attached to the conversation, distinguish verified information from online speculation, and determine whether anything publicly available supports the idea that Indiana is dealing with a serious chemistry problem. By the conclusion, the timeline should be far easier to understand, along with the reasons this interview became such a major story before the season even began.
Sophie Cunningham came out with her comments about trans players, trans trying to play women's sports and all of that. And then she doubled down on it in the pregame interview. We're going to get to that footage. But this is what Briana Turner has said in response to Cheryl Reeve and Sophie Cunningham going at Cheryl Reeve and disagreeing. And this is the Briana Turner response. We have got to get into this. Oh my goodness. This is nuts. We're going to get into all the tweets, but she started right here. She said, an issue that has caused problems, though. So she's saying transgenders has not caused any problems in women's sports. This is Briana Turner. An issue that has caused problems, though. Last year on my WNBA team, the Indiana Fever, a male staffer was fired for...
The central question remains whether Turner's comments have been exaggerated into something they were never meant to be, or whether they brought attention to an issue that deserves a much closer look.
Fever organization on blast. I don't know if this issue, look, I'm not a huge fan of Briana Turner. I'm not into all the activism stuff, but I don't think that she would come out and just lie. Like, it would be really weird if she came out and lied about this, saying a male staffer, for her to make it up. I don't think she would make it up, but this is definitely in response to Sophie Cunningham saying biological men should not be playing in women's sports, point blank, period. Okay. And she came out and threw the Indiana Fever. Sophie Cunningham, who just spoke about this in the Indiana Fever pregame, through the Indiana Fever. Yo, this is crazy. And if the Indiana Fever did tell people to be quiet about and all that, that's foul. That's nasty work. And everybody should be held accountable from the top down.
Perhaps the most significant element of Briana Turner's interview was the way she redirected attention from the familiar controversies surrounding the league toward a concern she considered more urgent. Instead of concentrating on the personalities and headlines that usually dominate WNBA coverage, Turner addressed the way professional organizations react when troubling workplace allegations emerge. She raised questions about the amount of information shared with players after a staff member is dismissed following accusations of misconduct, and she suggested that athletes can sometimes feel pressure to remain silent rather than openly discuss what occurred. That immediately gave the conversation a seriousness that extended far beyond wins, losses, and lineup decisions. Her statements touched on whether employees are kept informed during sensitive situations, whether organizations provide meaningful support, and whether people inside a team believe they can speak honestly without facing consequences. Those concerns naturally opened a larger discussion about accountability, communication, trust, and the obligations franchises have toward the individuals working within them. It also explains why the interview generated so many follow-up questions. What motivated Turner to address the subject publicly at this particular moment? Was she responding to a personal experience, a broader pattern she had observed, or concerns shared by other players? When athletes believe important information is being withheld, or that speaking openly is discouraged, what happens to their confidence in the people running the organization? Does this reflect a problem limited to one franchise, or is it part of a much wider issue that exists throughout professional sports? And with the Fever already facing extraordinary media scrutiny because of Clark, Cunningham, and the expectations surrounding the team, could this conversation become a season-long distraction? Turner's primary point appeared to concern the process organizations follow after serious workplace incidents, particularly whether players receive honest communication and feel protected enough to ask questions. Those principles are not unique to Indiana or even to women's basketball. Similar debates have taken place across numerous leagues whenever allegations, investigations, or personnel dismissals have occurred.
To be held accountable. Okay? Cheryl Reeves said, of course it weighs on me, the attacks on trans people. Everything that they've gone through makes it seem like it's got way more aggressive. It's sort of sickening when the issues they try to tackle are really not issues. The number of transgender athletes they are now making laws for and creating a problem to get elected. What I'm hopeful for is that people have gotten themselves more educated and understand that that's not actually a problem. Exclusion is never the answer. Separate isn't equal, and trans lives matter. So take away something that's so valuable that sports brings to young people, in particular what it does. As I have a youngster encourages you to be a part of a team, what it gives you in terms of teamwork, leadership, competitiveness.
Still, it is necessary to draw a clear line between what Turner directly stated and the conclusions other people have placed on top of her words. Her remarks introduce legitimate concerns about transparency and institutional responsibility, but they do not automatically establish that the Fever have a broken culture, a divided roster, or a leadership crisis. Until additional facts or direct responses emerge, the interview should be understood as a contribution to a continuing conversation about how teams preserve player trust while dealing with private investigations, internal decisions, and demands for public accountability. From the top down, this portion of the debate leaves ordinary basketball analysis behind and enters a much more complicated discussion about workplace conduct, organizational leadership, and the ability of employees to speak honestly when misconduct is alleged. The questions Turner's remarks introduce are substantial. When a serious complaint is reported, how openly should an organization communicate with the people affected by it? Do players and staff members believe they can express concerns without being ignored, punished, or quietly encouraged to move on? Most observers would agree that transparency and accountability are essential, yet the timing and surrounding circumstances of the interview have made the public reaction far more complicated. One group believes Turner was using her platform to draw attention to a credible workplace issue that should not be pushed aside simply because a new season is approaching. Another group argues that the remarks became entangled with an already emotional conversation about individual players, team loyalties, and potential divisions within the Fever. That difference in interpretation is a major reason the story has continued to grow. People are not only arguing over the substance of Turner's message, they are also arguing about the setting in which it was delivered, the moment it became public, and whether those factors can realistically be separated. If a player challenges the way an organization managed a previous workplace controversy, what happens to the relationship between the locker room and the front office? Can everyone continue operating normally after the issue becomes national news? Or does the attention inevitably follow the team through training camp and into the regular season? With Indiana already attracting more coverage than nearly any other franchise, could off-court disputes eventually receive more attention than the basketball itself? Some fans are also questioning whether this is simply a disagreement over organizational values, or whether it might influence personal relationships among teammates. If the subject remains active rather than fading from the news cycle, the response from Fever leadership could become just as important as Turner's initial comments. Whenever workplace concerns enter the public arena, they tend to create broader scrutiny of communication, decision-making, employee support, and the conduct of those in authority. A successful professional organization must protect its reputation, but it must also maintain the confidence of the people working inside it. Even so, caution is essential. A player can raise a meaningful concern without proving that an entire franchise is dysfunctional. Questions are not the same as evidence, and uncomfortable public commentary does not automatically reveal a deeper locker room fracture. Indiana's next steps will therefore matter. The manner in which team officials communicate, respond to uncertainty, and support their players may determine whether this issue becomes a lasting source of tension or a difficult conversation the organization is capable of addressing responsibly. For the Fever, the task is to remain focused on competition while acknowledging concerns that reach well beyond the boundaries of basketball. The final clip broadens the story even further by moving away from the immediate Fever controversy and into a social debate that has become increasingly prominent throughout modern sports. During the interview, the coach describes athletics as an environment where children and young adults can develop teamwork, discipline, leadership, self-belief, resilience, and respect for the people around them. Those qualities have always been among the strongest arguments for youth participation in sports, and many viewers support the idea that athletic programs should create welcoming spaces in which individuals from different backgrounds can learn and compete together. At the same time, the coach's remarks intersect with a larger public disagreement involving inclusion, eligibility standards, competitive balance, and the policies governing organized athletics. Athletes, coaches, league executives, parents, and fans have expressed a wide range of positions on those questions. Some strongly agree with the coach's emphasis on participation, dignity, and the unifying power of sports. Others believe that concerns involving fairness and competition remain unresolved and deserve careful examination rather than dismissal. That is precisely why the comments have gained so much attention. They are not being discussed as an isolated opinion from a single interview. Instead, they have become another contribution to a national conversation that reaches far outside the WNBA. The situation creates difficult questions for every professional team. How does a coach guide a roster when players may hold very different beliefs about topics unrelated to the game? Can teammates publicly disagree on sensitive social issues and still create the unity required to compete successfully? Will these discussions interfere with preparation once the season approaches, or can players leave them outside the arena and continue working toward the same objective? In Indiana's case, the spotlight makes everything more intense. With Clark, Cunningham, and the Fever already receiving constant national attention, nearly every statement, interview, appearance, and social media post will be analyzed from multiple directions. That creates an ongoing challenge for the franchise. Can it make basketball the primary story, or will external controversies repeatedly control the headlines? Professional rosters are made up of individuals with different life experiences, values, backgrounds, and personal convictions. Agreement on every public issue is neither realistic nor required. What matters is whether an organization can build an environment where disagreements do not prevent people from communicating, respecting one another, and pursuing a shared competitive goal. Public statements on emotionally charged subjects almost always create powerful reactions, especially when they come from recognizable players or influential coaches. Yet online outrage and media commentary do not necessarily provide an accurate picture of daily life inside a locker room. Chemistry develops through practices, travel, adversity, preparation, honest conversations, and the experience of competing together over time. It cannot be measured solely through a viral clip or a dramatic headline. Strong opinions will continue to emerge from every direction, but the ultimate judgment of this Fever team will come from what happens after the opening tip. Indiana has become one of the league's most closely followed franchises, meaning every storyline around it will be magnified. That pressure comes with a roster featuring major personalities and with expectations that the team can contend at a high level. Off-court debates may remain part of the season, but they will never represent the complete picture. The real answers will appear in how the players cooperate, how they respond to difficult moments, how they manage enormous expectations, and whether they remain connected when challenges arrive. Once the noise, speculation, and endless social media reactions are stripped away, the games will determine how this season is remembered. For viewers who value detailed WNBA coverage, major player developments, and thoughtful examinations of the league's biggest stories, subscribe and activate notifications so you are ready when the next breakdown arrives.